Welcome to Geek on Film with your hosts, Robbie Holmes and John Hosch. Howdy, folks. Welcome to episode 28 of Geek on Film. I'm Robbie.
Hey, I am John. Thanks for being here.
We're excited. This week we're going to talk about M. Night Shyamalan's return to form. Some people are saying the knock at the cabin as our main review. But as John noted before we got started, I was on a tear this week. I was trying really hard to catch up on all the films I needed to see for the Oscars. I'm trying desperately to make it to Oscars night with 0 films left that have been nominated that I haven't watched.
Robbie watched all the movies of all time. There is not a single movie that he hasn't watched now.
It's been a week for sure. Let's start off a little bit with some television. I just want to mention a show that I was really impressed with. Gaslit is something that my wife and I started watching like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. We've made it through the first 3 episodes. It is the story of Martha Mitchell and how she was a part of, and the story around her life being married to the Attorney General of the U.S., who was the right hand of Nixon, and how outspoken she was. But it's Julia Roberts getting a chance to really cook in a role.
Wow.
And her husband is played by Sean Penn. And he, again, has gone through a crazy transformation. He does not look like Sean Penn. This show is amazing. Like, it's been nominated for Emmys. I expect it to be nominated for more. Like, I don't know that this show, I think it's a single season or a limited series. If you haven't watched it, I would say it is something to put on your radar.
Cool.
I think we have 5 episodes left.
I'm just looking at the other people in the cast. I'm a huge Dan Stevens fan. I think he's a great actor.
Yeah.
And Betty Gilpin is in it also, apparently. So that's great too. I love her as well.
Betty Gilpin is really great. She is so Dan Stevens plays John Dean, and Betty Gilpin is a beautiful stewardess that he meets, and is sort of put off by his, like, you know, how conservative and uptight and Republican he is. And then she sees through, and she sees him as a better person. Mm-hmm. It's a really charming. She's really great in this. Dan Stevens is fantastic as like a dumb, like the thing that we keep going through in this show that my wife keeps saying is like, I can't believe these dummies, they're all so dumb. Like every aspect of this is like, is falling down on every aspect of the plan, right? Like the way they get caught, the way it's just, there's no competency in how they're trying to accomplish this. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, it's a little farcical in the way that they're pulling this up, but it doesn't sound that far off.
Right on. How is this as an episodic?
It's been really good. It's been really good. So the show is called Gaslit because there is this. So the story is that Martha was extremely outspoken, and I'll talk about this a little bit more. I watched the short about her that's nominated this year, and so she's this outspoken voice from within the Nixon campaign, as one of the wives of one of the men in the campaign. And so she did all these, like, she did tons of television interviews. She was kind of notorious for picking up the phone and calling reporters and being honest, like have a couple drinks and then call a reporter and dish a little bit. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of consternation about whether or not she was a problem. In the documentary, they talk about the fact that like over 100 hours of Nixon's conversations, and she's mentioned like 88 times in those 100 hours. Like she was a problem for Nixon and for Watergate and for the, just for the entire cabinet. There was a lot of chaos that she sowed by being public and honest, and sometimes coming out in opposition to what Nixon's stance was as a president. And so they try really hard to make it sound like she's got like mental issues, or she's not well. So that's why I think the show is called Gaslit. We haven't gotten to that point where that aspect has happened, but it really did happen in her life, where they publicly try to smear her and blame her for a lot of things.
Definitely got to check it out. It's on Stars, right?
Yes. And
I think if you have
pretty great, honestly.
Yeah. And I'm just kind of scrolling around. If you if you do have Amazon Prime, you can watch the first episode on Amazon Prime for free. So you can check out at least episode 1 to see if you want to continue on.
Let's jump over to Last of Us, buddy. I think we were up to episode 3. How are you feeling? Are you okay?
Yeah. So at time of recording, episode 4 hasn't aired yet, but man, everyone is talking about episode 3, and rightfully so. So we've talked about Last of Us, where it's kind of the new thing that everyone's talking about, where it's a TV show based on a very popular video game for the PlayStation console, and it's a post-apocalyptic world where people get infected by a fungus and they become zombie-like, and it's about people dealing with people being shitty and stuff. And the interesting thing about episode 3 that everyone is talking about is, I'm hearing a lot that it's like this is one of the best episodes of television in all of history. I haven't been around for all of history, but and I think that like I get the vibe. I get that vibe. I think I need to watch it a couple more times to like get fully blown away, but it's super impressive. It strays away from the main storyline, at least so you think. And we follow Nick Offerman playing Bill, and he's kind of like a he doesn't use the term, but he's like a doomsday prepper. He's got a bunker. He's got like closed circuit recording devices and everything, and very smartly so, because what happens in Last of Us is the army brings people to quarantine zones, but if the quarantine zones get filled, I'm spoiling a bunch of stuff, but I don't think it won't change your viewing experience. But like the messed up thing that the armies did was like if the quarantine zones were filled, they didn't want to leave people to be fodder to get infected and become flesh eating fungus zombie people, so they just killed them all. So like in the beginning of the episode, you're walking past like an open grave where there's just a bunch of skeletons. And I think that at that point you're still following Ellie and Joel's character, but they did this really interesting thing where it's like they show a skeleton with a like a deteriorating shirt, and there's like a very distinct fabric on it. They zoom into the fabric, and we instantly jump, I think 10 or more years back to the initial outbreak, and we follow this character Bill around. Now he's set up really well in his house. He hides as the army is getting everyone out of the town. He's got like a sub basement, so he's hiding underneath his basement. You can hear the army going through his whole house and looking for him. They don't find him, so they leave. And then he's left to his own devices, and he's like happy as can be because he can turn on the power plant. He can raid the nearest Home Depot, and then he's super happy. And then after years, he meets Frank, played by Murray Bartlett. And then we get a beautiful story that goes on until we catch up. We finally catch up at the end with Joel and Ellie. I think it was a really interesting, dare I say, bold choice to have this episode. I think I don't want them to do more episodes like this, because I feel like this is a moment in time, and I don't want anything. I think if they keep doing this, it's going to become a gimmick, and I think that's a bad move. So hopefully this is it. But
Yeah.
man, oh man, it's fantastic.
I think the big one for me was like it feels like this is the adaptation versus directly parroting what they was done before.
Mhm.
So in the game, Bill and Frank's story is different, and the unfold is different from what I understand. What they did here was they gave us the opportunity to see that the story that they're telling is that you have the ability for certain people to find happiness in the middle of this madness, and that two people found one another, and created a life that they couldn't have had pre outbreak,
Right.
because Bill didn't feel comfortable in his own life being who he was,
Mhm.
obviously. And honestly, I think Frank is sort of a person like who is really connected to people, but I don't know that he's ever been forced to be honest and real. Like
Mhm.
the type of personality he has doesn't feel like he's sort of he's comfortable, extroverted, probably fueled by many people in his life, and by being forced to get to know Bill and care, they created a relationship that probably wouldn't have happened if we were in normal society. Bill wouldn't have been comfortable letting Frank into his life, and Frank wouldn't have been comfortable staying with one human as his sole existence.
Yeah.
But yet together they fulfilled each other's needs
Yeah.
and created a perfect life together. Even though it's not perfect, there's more good days than bad, and that's all you can ask for, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the word that comes to mind is authentic. Like
yeah,
they've through this tragedy, this global tragedy, in this little tiny, slice of the world, they've found a way to both become their authentic selves without having the pressures and the judgment of the rest of society around them. It was. I mean, what a roller coaster it goes on.
yeah. I think
Um,
there's a couple of things I want to point to. One, I think there's amazing individual lines that show a depth of knowledge about relationships and care. Right, like I didn't have to be scared until you arrived. Right, like it's a
mhm.
really beautiful idea. Like
Yeah,
Bill wasn't worried about himself. Right, he was prepared to do what needed to be done. He's a survivalist, so he was sort of just on autopilot and didn't even think about getting killed. And
yeah,
then when Frank was part of his life, he had to worry about this person he loved, right? Like, and that opened him up and changed how he thought about the world and about life and about everything, right?
yeah.
The final shot of the episode is the open window.
Mhm.
The open window is the save screen, the opening screen for the video game. So they
Wow.
finally bookended that in
Mhm.
this moment where like you see pollen flowing and these windows with curtains blowing.
Mhm.
So they very smartly are bringing forward imagery, sounds that make you think of the game, but they find ways to work it in so it's not like hammered home that this is what you're seeing. But
Yeah,
it was an extremely subtle way to end the episode, to have an open window with curtains blowing and the key notes that you hear throughout the game on that screen.
yeah.
And it's just there's so much love, care, and affection given to this show by the creators. And we didn't really talk about it much, but my favorite was Neil Druckmann in one of the interviews said when you first saw the clicker in person, after they had done the makeup tests and then that person was on set, he
Mhm.
started crying because he's like, it's beautiful and I never thought this was possible. And
Yeah,
I feel like that's the way every episode feels, is like, I didn't think this was possible, right? Like I didn't think there was this, like, it's wrong to call it a bottle episode because there are other aspects of it, right? There's a lot of back and forth about this on like really annoying pedantic internet right now. But
mhm.
they show this little smaller story inside of this larger story, and you spend, there's a 2 hour cut of this episode from what I understand. And Druckmann said like they cried for an hour. Like
Well,
they couldn't do that to the audience, right?
yeah,
Like so they had to find a way to tell this story and have it be emotional and have it fit within what could be sort of an episode length. It's like 1 hour and 12 minutes or something like that. It's a long episode.
they should
But
release
there's
it
a
in theaters.
I honestly I agree. Like if this goes up for like Emmy awards and things like that, if they really want to drive it home, I would do like a Q&A and let the 2 hour cut of this
Yeah.
episode be shown.
If anything, like do it, like do a Fathom. That's what they should do. They should call up Fathom events and they should show this episode on the big screen with either a recorded or a live Q&A after showing it. So
I mean, we're talking a lot about this episode. We've been very high on a lot of television. I'm really impressed with this show. I cannot believe the performances we just saw.
mhm.
The intimacy, the connection, the depth of knowledge about characters, right? Like I'm so bought into when somebody can tell a story in a short period of time and make you understand every aspect of a character.
Mm.
This episode does that. We
Yeah.
know who Bill is, we know who Frank is. So that when the show goes where you expect it to go, we feel it, right? Like there's a really beautiful scene where they like eat strawberries for the first time.
Oh my
in a
God, I
very
was going
long
to talk
time.
about that. Yeah.
And when they talked about it, they knew they wanted to shoot. So the show is almost always shot with natural light. So I listened to an interview with the cinematographer, and they talked about the fact that like they try really hard to use natural light all the time. So sometimes it'll be like there's not enough windows. What if a car hit the wall here, right? Like so
Right.
they think really hard about how to naturally light this world. Sometimes to the point where like the decision to where the table and the kitchen was in the house was made based on how much natural light they had.
Mm.
So they moved it around. They wanted sconces that felt like they belonged in that house, but also wouldn't throw harsh light on the people.
Mhm.
So there's some really interesting choices that are being made. But in that scene, they wanted in the game, you spend so much time with spores being
Yeah.
a part of the world. And in this episode, they wanted for the first time to really have pollen feel like it was part of the space. So in that episode, they make fake pollen. So that way, in that moment in golden hour, you have these like light, like almost ethereal shadowing of the people that
Mhm.
is pollen supposed to be falling. That is not in the other episodes, right? That shot was done at golden hour. They had 15 minutes of light, and they were like not sure they were going to get it in the first day, but like literally the cinematographers like we're not doing this without the natural lighting. And they were able to shoot it in one day. They had 15 minutes.
Wow.
So that entire shot is done in a 50. But it's because they chose to put the strawberry plants and the actual field in this spot that got this sunlight, right? Like, so it's a combination of like lighting and cinematography and production design and directing, right? This is like high quality television that's happening here, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, not just from a technical point of view, but like for me, it really kind of like I was experiencing the idea that I haven't had like maybe like natural sugar or just the taste of strawberries in possibly a decade.
Yeah.
Just like the sensory overload that both of them get
Yeah.
was very palpable on screen. And even Nick Offerman's character, even
Yeah.
like does this like giddy giggle
Yep.
when he eats a strawberry, and it was just really, really amazing. And yeah, I mean, I can't. Yeah, the more even sitting here talking about the episode, yeah, maybe it is one of the best, the best episodes of episodic television ever made.
Yep.
Definitely want to go back and watch it again, though.
I'm really excited to see where the show continues to go. We're now at the point where we're past the game that I've played. So I'm very excited to stop being able to compare. Now I'm able to just sit with the show as a show.
Yeah, me too. We were way past how far I got in. I don't think I even got to Bill in the game. So
all right, so let's jump over to some films. In my want to try to watch and catch up on everything that was Oscar nominated, my wife and I sat down and watched Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris this week. It's on Peacock. This is an extremely charming movie. There's no reason why this is a film that everybody can't throw into their queue and just have a very nice time at the movies. It's charming, it's sweet, it's well done. I think the production design and the costuming in this is unbelievable, which is what it got nominated for. No real surprise when Christian Dior's dresses are the focal point of the movie, that it's going to get nominated for costume design. But it's the production design is also amazing. She lives in this like garden apartment in London that feels, or somewhere in Britain, it feels extremely real. Like you've been in apartments like this. It reminded me so much of like New York garden apartments. You go down three steps and then you open this door and you're walking into what is basically like a semi-walled off uh, single apartment that almost feels like one bedroom. Like
Mm-hmm.
your kitchen, your living room, your bedroom are, it's almost like a studio garden apartment, and it just feels so natural. And I think there's an amazing ease that Leslie Mann, who's the main character, has in playing this character who is empathetic and caring and takes care of everyone. There's no aspect of this film that doesn't feel believable, and that's interesting. Saying because she goes to Paris to try to buy a Dior dress and ends up at Dior's house and ends up at a showing of the new dresses for the season, and it's really cute. Like the way it unfolds is adorable, but none of it feels impossible, which is really impressive because this is a sort of almost like modern day fairy tale is what it feels like, and they were able to balance out like the sweet aspects and the practical aspects that none of this feels unbelievable.
Mm.
And you have to suspend a little bit of disbelief, but you're also like, yeah, this is charming. Like charming is the word I would put like on their poster, like the one word for this film.
Cool. You talked a little bit about this when you were talking about Gaslit, but talk to me about the Martha Mitchell Effect documentary.
Yeah, so this is it's a very short in the short docs space. The Martha Mitchell Effect is on Netflix. It is the sort of 40 minutes. It's like this is on rails. This is a fast moving documentary about who Martha is, the impact she had on both Watergate and Nixon, but also there's a Harvard professor that coined the phrase the Martha Mitchell effect, which is when someone publicly is called out for lying or something is wrong and it turns out to be true. So
Mm.
that is where the term comes from, the Martha Mitchell effect. So it's like when someone is gaslit and it turns out to be the other side of the coin is true, that is what the Martha Mitchell effect is. This is really great because it also, in conjunction, is telling the whole story of Gaslit for me. So seeing the real Martha Mitchell and then feeling how Julia Roberts is embodying that character is really unique. I didn't expect to have documentary about Martha and be watching Gaslit at the same time, but
Right.
it really does feel like it rounds out and gives me more confidence that Julia Roberts will likely get nominated for Best Actress in a limited series. She's really good in it, and she really embodies all of the quirky, chatty Southern nature that is Martha. And it's so good to have that to hold up a candle against, right? Like it's
Mm.
almost like I have it's a funhouse mirror. It feels like you have the real Martha over here, and then you have Julia Roberts, who we all know is like America's sweetheart, playing this character who's a little quirky and a little rambunctious and a little like often people talked about her as much. She's too much for the DC scene. She was a woman who spoke her mind, and
Mm.
but
Heaven
like
forbid.
but also was just charming and funny and vivacious and
Right.
like seeing the version of her that Julia Roberts gets to play is really fun. So if you decide to watch Gaslit, I would suggest watching the Martha Mitchell Effect just so you can feel how good the performances are, and it doesn't feel like it's a copycat. It feels like Julia Roberts is interpreting who Martha was.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming this was because of our main review and you're a big fan of M. Night Shyamalan that you finally watched Devil, which is available on Stars, I think, right?
Yeah, so I finally broke down and watched Devil. Devil is a really is the movie that when the trailers came out, it was when M. Night was at his sort of lowest point, and the I remember seeing videos of people when it would come up at the very end and say like the whole trailer would end, and then it would say like from the mind of M. Night Shyamalan, and like the audience laughed, right?
This
Like
wa-
there's a lot
this
of that
is yeah
type of
this
footage, from that era.
this is post Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? Or sorry, just not take the Avatar out. This is post The Last Airbender, right?
I believe it is.
Right.
And I also think it may be after he did After Earth. So he's really in this like downward slide from large funded films.
Mm.
But what's interesting is it's from his mind. So he wrote the story, not the screenplay, and he also doesn't direct it.
Mm.
So what I liked about this is it's a short film. It's very tight in its construction. There's about 8 main players, and those 8 players are really caricatures of the types of people that you may run across in your daily life. The idea being, there are 5 people in an elevator. The elevator gets stuck,
Mm-hmm.
and the movie opens with somebody committing suicide or falling to their death outside of this. Uh, there's a giant truck that is that there's a dead body on top of, and it turns out that the truck rolled down the hill and around the corner after the person landed on it.
Mm.
So they follow this back, and there's glass in front of this building. There's somebody cleaning up, and we immediately meet these 2 detectives. Chris Messina plays the main detective in the film.
Big fan of him
And
as an actor.
what's that?
Big fan of him as an actor. He's a great
Yeah.
actor.
What I will say is the script is smart. It's a very smart script. So I kept saying to my wife, like, he feels like such a competent detective, right? They get a call because in the elevator, something transpires and there's a worry that there may be something more going on and somebody may have been attacked in the elevator. So he hears it over the radio, and he's right there because they're investigating this dead body that landed on the thing. And he's like, he's like, the address comes in, and he's like, it's got to be right here. And he looks over, and it's the building he's standing in front of. And he's like, hey, this is Bowden. Like, put that one on me. I'm right outside. And like he goes inside the building, and you immediately get this moment where like security is watching what's going on in the elevator, and they can talk to the elevator, but they can't hear. The double-sided nature of the speaker is broken. So what's awesome is he walks into this room and literally says like, all right, who's working on the elevator? And they're like, elevator guy. And they're like, is that guy your guy, or is it the elevator company? And it's like, our guy. And he's like, call the elevator company, get somebody down here. And then he's like, get fire department down here. So we have people to get through the wall if we need to. But it's like within seconds, he like takes control of the situation. And I just feel like competent detectiving and policing is not shown in films very often. And he like grabs the microphone and he's like, "Hey, I'm Detective Bowden. We're here. We're looking into it. We'll have you out pretty soon. Hang in there."
Wow.
Like just this amazing calm moment of like, what would a good cop do, right? Like he's assessing the situation. He comes in and he's like, let's get everything taken care of. Like this isn't a murder scene. Like, but these people are scared. Like, here's the 8 things we need to do in the next 10 minutes to make this happen. Like,
Yeah.
and I just loved how practical it felt. Like he's very believable as a detective. Like I don't know that I know Chris Messina very from a lot of stuff, but boy, I just kept going back to like, I believe this guy, right? Like I believe who he is. There's a whole bunch of other stories that go on and interlock and I think there's a little bit of a psychological, like supernatural component to what's happening. And I almost wish that was left out. Like, I feel like just the tension of 5 people in an elevator who don't know one another, don't trust one another. There are all these sort of relatively terrible, like caricatures of humans is enough for this film. But the psychological and sort of supernatural piece didn't make the film better for me. It just sort of was like, I guess this is a pretty solid 3-star film. And honestly, the supernatural nature neither pushed it higher or lower. And I almost wish the script was rewritten as like a non-supernatural film and we could make the same film with almost the same people playing all these characters. But yeah, Chris Messina is the giant standout. Like he's so believable in this role, and also just a smart script. Like at one point, one of the people is they try to figure out who these people are. They're in this building; it's a commercial building. They all have appointments, right? That's the reason they're in this building. So they figure out that one of the women in the elevator is going to see a lawyer. So they get everybody out of the building. They evacuate everyone down to the first floor, and he comes out looking for the lawyer that this person has an appointment with. And he's like, finally, the guy's like, "Yeah, I'm over here." And he comes over and he's like, "Do you know this person?" And he's like, "I can't talk about my cases." And he's like, "Listen, I'm trying to save her life." And he's like, I can't. And he's like, "Well, like, come on, buddy. Like, this is ridiculous. You know, like, give me something. And they like the lawyer takes him around the corner. He's like, I can't tell you anything, but I would look closest to her, maybe. And as just sort of an aside, like that he's not breaking confidence. But then he goes, I study forensic financials. That's my law. So he like gives him enough that like you might want to look into something having to do with money, right? Like, and I feel like there's just clever aspects in the script all the way along that make me feel like this is how like well appointed human beings would act. And that not every film has that, you know,
Yeah,
and I
sure.
don't think every M. Night Shyamalan film has that. So is this that it's his story being like run through the Brian Nelson filter who wrote the
Right.
script? You know, like there's an interesting play here that feels very grounded that I don't think all of M. Night's, especially his dialogue, doesn't often feel very grounded. And this movie has like a reality to it in this really weird supernatural film that kind of was the thing I latched onto, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, and also Bokeem Woodbine. I'm looking at the cast again. Is in the
Yeah.
movie. He plays the guard. I love that guy. He's
Uh-huh.
Bokeem Woodbine is like the guy that's in every movie that you're like, oh, that's that. He's that guy.
Yeah.
He always
Yeah,
gives
he
a
plays a security guard, and
yeah,
he's a temp security guard, and it's like his second day.
yeah.
So he's like squirrely. They're trapped in the elevator, and at one point, like you can see he's panicking, and people are just like, "What's your problem?" And he's like, "My brother used to lock me in a trunk. He locked me in a trunk for 6 hours one time. I don't do good in small spaces." Like, so like there's a reason why people are acting the way they're acting, which is what it feels like.
Hmm.
Like everybody has motivation for why they're squirrely, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's smartly cast. I think that's the other thing is like everybody who's in the elevator is a caricature of a type of person,
Right.
and I think that's really smart. Jenna O'Hara plays the old woman in the elevator. Jeffrey Arnend plays the salesman who's like slimy, and then who's the woman? There's a younger woman. Hold on, she's really great and sort of steals a lot of it. Bojovana Novokic. But so there's like really interesting caricatures of humans in the elevator, and every one of them has a pretty deep backstory and a reason for being. Again, I'm all bought in when somebody gives me a reason to believe in their characters, and this
Hmm.
movie does a lot of that.
Cool. Switching over, you also watched Causeway, which I believe is the movie that Brian Tyree Henry is getting a lot of talk about, correct? In
Yeah,
his
this
performance?
movie is kind of a two-hander between Jennifer Lawrence and Brian Tyree Henry. She is a person. She's a military person who has traumatic brain injury. So the movie opens up with her sort of coming back home and going to like a halfway house to be helped by like a. She lives in someone's house to learn how to reacclimate to life post traumatic brain injury,
Hmm.
and she ends up she has a truck. Her mom, like, there's very complicated relationships. I don't want to get too deep into the story here because I love the way it unfolds. But in
Hmm.
the end, Jennifer Lawrence's truck that she's driving starts to have a problem, and she drives it to a garage, and it turns out that it's Brian Tyree Henry's character James's garage, and that is how their connection starts. And the movie is very much about like how do humans in their 30s who are kind of broken become friends, and
Hmm.
is it possible? And I think Jennifer Lawrence is so stripped down in this movie and very like aloof because she's not she doesn't trust herself, she doesn't trust the life she's a part of, she's constantly trying to get back to military action, and they're not sure that she should. Like her friend, James is not sure, her therapist is not sure, right? Like there's a lot of like trying to figure out what where she should be going. That and it's not all on her, right? Like her doctor is played by Stephen McKinley Henderson, who you would absolutely recognize. He's the mentat in Dune,
Okay.
the guy who is the human computer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's been in so many things.
He's also he's a very prolific stage actor.
Yeah.
He's actually in a Broadway play right now with Common, actually.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
He's unbelievable as her doctor. He like she's like, I need you to sign this waiver, and he's like, I think physically you're probably okay. I don't mentally. I don't think this is good for you. Like,
Mhm.
and it's real honest conversations. I feel like people have in that space, and sort of very stripped down. Like Jennifer Lawrence is really vulnerable in this movie. She also, because of who she is and because of her background and what she's doing, it's really interesting. Like there's no dolling her up. Like she has no, like, I don't know that there's the character wears makeup once in the film. I don't know that her hair is done anything more than just like left to do its own devices. Like it just feels so different than other roles I've seen her play. And it's this really interior character that she, you can see that there's a lot going on inside of her, and even her exterior doesn't seem to mimic what's going on inside. And I think it's for somebody who is as like vivacious and alive as the character she plays sometimes, the stoicism and the ability to hold back her natural charisma is what I feel like you see in this film. And Brian Tyree Henry is just a walking charm box. Like there's not a time I've seen him on screen where I'm like, I don't want to hang out with him. And this is one of those films where he's got a kind of broken backstory as to why he is who he is and where he is, but he is, his empathy and his charm is everywhere. Like he explodes off the screen, whereas like Jennifer Lawrence is like falling away, right? Like there's a nice balancing act of the two of them being in scenes together where you're like, God, like he is just like vibrating at a different frequency than she is. And it's just because it's who they are as people. They're both kind of broken, but he is a different kind of broken. And I really loved it. I think it's a really great film that I'm so glad to see he got nominated for. I'm bought in on him as an actor, but for a film like this that is really small and doesn't, you know, it's on Apple TV Plus, so it's not as small as it could be,
Mhm.
but a very interior, very small two-hander film to get acknowledgement by the Academies is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of his as well. Um, Now we reviewed Tar before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what episode that was though.
It was the Middleburg episode, so
I see.
it was the main review on the Middleburg episode.
Gotcha. Right, because yes, I was like, where I'm trying to. So if you guys go back to episode 12, you can hear kind of our thoughts on Tar, but it's now available on Peacock.
Yep.
What is are there new revelations that you have?
I think the first viewing of it, I was so put off by the coldness of the world, of the character, of the person that Kate Blanchett was embodying,
Mm-hmm.
that I was less positive on it as a film.
Mm-hmm.
Watching this film, I almost broke down in tears because I was like, I feel very bad for Michelle Yeoh. I think this is a singular performance. And I think in any other year, I would expect Michelle Yeoh to be a runaway for Best Actress. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
Kate Blanchett is like almost a brick wall in front of her competition this year. Like
Sure.
it
Yeah.
is an unbelievable performance. And for the way that the Oscars thinks about how sometimes it's maximalist cinema, right? Like that they focus on like the biggest costumes, the biggest production.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very like cold and stoic film with a giant performance by one woman. And this feels like the most acting that is happening this year, right? Like without it being overacting. I think she's embodying this character that I don't know that anyone else could. I said to my wife, well, you know, after we watched it, I'm like, this is sort of if Todd Field said he wouldn't make this film without Kate Blanchett, and that I can't imagine this film being made with anyone else. And that is unique. And I think that is makes me nervous for Michelle Yeoh's possibilities at this point.
If
Uh,
Michelle Yeoh doesn't win, there will be riots.
yeah. I think the other thing I will say is Peacock's 4K stream for this and its Atmos is really good.
Oh
That's
wow.
the first time I've said that about Peacock. I think Peacock is about to have, I think it's Peacock and Showtime are about to merge publicly.
Mhm. Is
Um, it's either Peacock or Paramount Plus. But I was really impressed with the quality of the stream. But also when we got into the orchestra, practicing, the sound was as good, in my opinion, or better than my experience was when I saw it at Middleburg. The sound is like overwhelming and
Mhm.
everywhere. They did a really great job of like making sure there was enough bandwidth available in the stream to carry the Atmos and the sort of directional sound.
Mhm.
It's really well done. So just sort of a nod to the quality of what I saw on Peacock. I'm surprised to say that, because often streaming doesn't feel like it's as good as what you can get off a 4K disc. And this is one where I'll probably eventually buy it as a 4K disc because it is so much about the visuals and about the audio track that I think it's worthwhile. And it's a film I'll
Mhm.
probably show to people over the years. But I was really impressed by Peacock stream here. It was not what I was expecting to walk away from this film with.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, like you can go back to the episode, and I mean, I haven't watched the movie since we've seen it. I can definitely, I wholeheartedly uh, support the idea that Kate Blanchett is awesome, but yeah, I fucking hated her in that movie, and because she was so good. Like
Yeah.
they wrote this character that is to me is very unlikable, and I really she got me really angry. And I mean that's the mark of a great performance. If it makes you feel something, it doesn't always have to make you feel good. It can make
Yeah.
you feel bad too.
I
So
think one nice thing also is rewatching it, since I know where the movie's going, where I know I was looking for details and less about like being surprised and having to know what the story was. Revisiting the Juilliard scene is really powerful, and knowing that it's coming, I sort of had to brace myself for what was about to happen. That like
Mhm.
5 minutes was really it's like, you're pushing a boulder over the edge and you're just waiting for it to destroy everything in its path. Like you can feel that energy now when you watch it again.
Mhm.
When you know it's about to happen and you're like, so this is an important scene, right? Like there was a couple of times where like, I would say that to my wife. I'm like, this, you should really focus on this. Like this is about to be a big deal. But I was kind of blown away when the movie opened, to revisit the sort of credits with the music, the choice of the music from South America.
Mhm.
Again, it's such a big choice to make to open a film that way. And so different than anything else I've seen in a really long time. And also when we first meet, Lydia on stage, there is the back of we see, uh, of like behind a woman, is what you see, and you realize when you see it for the second time that Krista is in that audience, and it's Krista that we're behind, that red hair that you see, and the impact that, like, so the first time you see it, you don't really know who that person is and why that person is important, and then you realize on second viewing that Krista is in that audience, and it really does change a little bit. I think seeing it a second time added a lot more, depth to the movie than I was expecting.
Mhm. Michelle Yeoh better win.
All right, let's get it. You saw You People. I didn't get a chance to because I was on the other tear. Talk to me about it. What was your feelings?
This movie's incredible. This movie is fantastic. So you people, look, the setup for you people is not original in that sense. Where this is very much like a Look Who's Coming to Dinner, Father of the Bride, like a what's the right term? Like when two people get together and you don't, they seem like they're from two different worlds, and then they go and meet their family, and madness ensues. And we've all seen that before. But this stars Jonah Hill, and it's written by Jonah Hill and Kenya Barris, and Kenya Barris directed the film. If you don't know who Kenya Barris is, he is the person who gave us all the ishes. So Blackish, Youngish, I believe, or Grownish. Sorry, Blackish, Grownish. Um, he also was a writer on Girls Trip. He also has his own television show where he kind of uh, called hashtag Black AF, and he plays himself, and Rashida Jones is his wife in that, and that's a fantastic show. So you have Jonah Hill, who falls in love as a white Jewish man, but who has a podcast with an incredible actor, Sam J. I don't know what Sam J's pronouns are, but I believe they're uh, female identifying. But they have a very, they're, I don't want to sound insensitive, but they have, they kind of are a little male presenting ish, but I believe they are. Anyway, um, Sam J is incredible as a performer. And Sam J and Jonah Hill have this podcast about quote unquote the culture, but really it's very much black culture. But Jonah Hill is he loves passionately like all things that like would kind of create black culture. He loves the clothing, the music, the food, all that stuff. And he meets so he plays Ezra, and he meets Amira, who is played by Lauren London, who is incredible. They have incredible chemistry. They fall madly in love. They want to get married, so they have to meet each other's parents. Now, Laura London, Amira's father, is played by Eddie Murphy, and Jonah Hill's mother is played by Louis Dreyfus, and everyone is at the top of their game, to use that cliched term, in this movie. First and foremost, like everyone seems so comfortable, and like it's like there is like a they're very much is like no one is acting in this movie. There's like this feeling that you're like, yeah, it's so naturalistic, and yet it is like a hilarious comedy. Um, but yeah, the things that are brought up because of the differences between the cultures, um, Julie Louis Dreyfus like very much wants to know. It's like she's like, I want to be open and I want to know all about the culture of my future daughter-in-law, and it's just really interesting because like it just like shows how there's a difference between like wanting to be an ally and wanting to versus like turning someone into like a toy or a plaything and just like wanting to know more about them. And and I think the cool thing about this is like everyone's guilty. Like Eddie Murphy's character is just as guilty as Julie Louis Dreyfus about like instantaneously stereotyping Jonah Hill's character, not and like being resistant to this kind of like take him for who he is, immediately having preconceived notions. It's a really fantastic it's a really fantastic movie. There is, I always feel like you learn better through laughter. So like
Yep.
you laugh, you like people are going to laugh into conversations. And I think I don't know, one of the trailers of this movie that came out later after it opened is like the movie that has everyone talking. And yeah, there are a lot of talking points in this movie, and I think it's really interesting, and I think it's just like I'm so impressed. And this is so for people who don't know, Jonah Hill's kind of gone through like this like rein reinvention of his entire life, where like he's like a surfer dude now. He's like tatted from like sternum to like knees. He like is just like kind of like takes on this more like surfer dude talking when he like just talks in general. And it's like he like surfs, and like that's kind of like his coping mechanism in life. I watched some like interviews with him,
Mhm.
and it's just like it's a different Jonah Hill, and it's like I don't know. I'm very impressed in how far he's come from like the age of super bad, and he in like I don't know, even just from where he's come from like Wolf of Wall Street to now is very interesting. And Eddie Murphy again, he's so in this movie he's super subdued, and he's just like kind of like he's a presence.
Yeah.
And and Eddie Murphy in himself now is a presence. He is an icon, and he doesn't have to do much in this movie to do that. And it's just like I'm assuming everyone is knows what they're doing in this movie as actors, but Kenya Barris, I'm also assuming is like had the right eye and could tell them very subtly like how to make sure that the tone was all right across the board. And it's just a great, it's like I can't like these are one of those movies I'm like, god damn, this was really great.
That's
uh,
awesome.
and there's definitely rewatchability. I'm surprised this was released when it was released. And I know we talk a lot about like awards ceremonies and stuff in this movie, and I feel like I don't know if we should like always be focusing on like, oh, movies need awards and stuff, but like when it comes down to it, like, oh, I guess awards and notoriety help push movies into the right places. And I'm surprised this was released in January and is not in their running. I would imagine for anything because of the release date, and also like I guess because it's Netflix, like it was released on Netflix, but like this should have gotten a theatrical release. It's
Hmm.
that good.
It's really cool. It's something I've been hearing a lot of positives about. So it's cool to hear your like effusive comments about the film and giving a little more context, because I feel like it's not a film like the log line for this film does not say like emotionally like mature approach to telling a story. It feels very like by numbers, paint by numbers feel of a film like this.
Sure.
So it's pretty great to hear that like it's not paint by numbers. It's people really knowing their characters, knowing the story that they're telling, and also sort of embracing the aspect of this film and going transcending this sort of the trope of the film, I feel like is the
Mhm.
way I would put it.
Yeah.
There's a documentary on Netflix called Stutz, which is Jonah Hill and his therapist. It's a documentary about Jonah Hill and how his therapist and he have approached his psychological health, and
That's
apparently
amazing.
it's really great. Yeah, I haven't yet seen it. It's in my queue of things to watch, but I it's definitely been one of those things that I keep bouncing past, and I'm like, God, I'm trying to catch up on stuff. But it's definitely in my queue, and I hope to watch it soon. I think it'll be a nice double feature, I think, for me to watch with this film.
Very cool. Yeah.
So let's jump to our yeah.
No, just saying, now that I know that's there, I may have that may be something that I report back on next week.
Yeah. So this is the last film before our main review. This probably would have been our review last week if we didn't talk about Sundance. This is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I went and saw this in the theater this week. I really have been hearing nothing but positive things about it. Its position being the in the animated feature film nominations was one of the things that pushed me to want to go see it. But that and all the positive press that's been going on, I just want to take a second and point out like this. People, I've heard some people say that this is not a good year for animated features. I'm confused by that very
Who's
much.
saying that?
So the 5 films that are currently nominated for Best Animated Feature are Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, The Sea Beast, and Turning Red. All of those films are 4-star or above in my ratings.
Yeah.
And the one film that's not on there that should be is Wendell and Wild. So I have at least 3 or 4 other animated films that I could have put in this list and not felt bad about it. So I think everybody needs to take a breath. This has been a hell of a year for animated feature films.
Yeah, I mean,
Of
let's
all
not
different
forget.
types,
Yeah, let's also not forget that Strange World came out, and it's a fantastic film, but
Yeah,
it got it did not perform well, but that's not the fault of the film. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. So
So
I just wanted to note, like, I've been hearing some weird buzz when I listen to a lot of critics talking about like this isn't a good year for feature animated features, and I'm like, you're just wrong. This film this year has at least 6 or 7 really solid 4-star animated films.
yeah,
So to jump into this film, this is the second film in the Puss in Boots film
third,
series.
actually the third.
Third, there was Puss in Boots and he was part of the Shrek films, right?
There was a direct to streaming or whatever movie that was kind of the. It was like a three.
Oh,
It
the
was like
three
a
Diablos.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's there, but no one really saw that. So
Yeah, so this is I was exposed to this character via Shrek. I don't know that I ever saw the first Puss in Boots film. I definitely didn't see Three Diablos. But one of the things we had talked about was whether or not you could just jump in and see this film. You can just jump in and see this film.
yeah.
We talked a little bit about whether or not it was going to be possible, or because John and I talked afterwards last week trying to figure out if we were going to do what we were going to do, and I asked him very pointedly if he felt like I had to watch Puss in Boots, and he said no. I think one thing to note, studio people, this film is out and is nominated for an Oscar. Why don't you make your first film available on a streaming service? What is going on? I did not want to pay. Anywhere? I did not want to pay $5 to rent Puss in Boots when I pay for every streaming service available on the planet. It just seemed very surprising to me that, like, to support this film and its run towards an Oscar, wouldn't you want to give it everything you possibly could and create as much buzz as you could around it? I'm very confused by the fact that this film, the original film, is not available somewhere. Taking all that aside, the film is great. I think normally I get annoyed when all of the voice cast in an animated film is non-voice actors, but this film gets the best out of everyone involved. I think Joel Crawford and Jonuel Mercado are do such an amazing job of getting real, genuine performances out of these actors and convince them how to bring the empathy that they usually use their whole body for and the personality into these voice acting roles. I think it's a different skill set, right, to be a voice actor than to be an actor in movies or television. And I am so impressed by what they were able to pull out of all of these amazing actors. Like they perform there's so much heart in this movie, and so much nuance in the characters they're playing. Henry Gillian, who plays Perito, who is Guillermo in What We Do in the Shadows on the television show, is fantastic in this. Like, I would be so surprised that he doesn't get cast in a million more animated films off of the back of this film.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of sang the praises of this movie back in episode, the women talking episode we did. I also had seen it that episode, but yeah, it's fantastic. This franchise is, to me, is far superior to the Shrek franchise. This movie, the first movie, and the movie in the middle, as it were. The thing that really stands out about these movies, there's no cynicism in these movies.
Yeah.
Puss loves life. He loves adventure. He loves danger. He sincerely thinks he's like the greatest thing in the world. Whereas, like, the Shrek movies are based on a big middle finger to large corporate large corporate entities that perhaps the studio heads of DreamWorks might have issue with. And I feel like that's there's a cynicism in the Shrek world, but not in Puss in Boots. And yeah, it's just like so enjoyable, and he's so goddamn cute. And you pair him with like Antonio Banderas' sultry voice and everything. It's a perfect storm of enjoyable viewing pleasure, both for adults and kids.
I listened to a podcast that where they were talking about recording. So this entire thing was done during the pandemic, so no one was normally not recording together anyway. But Salma Hayek and Antonio Banderas know each other so well that apparently Salma Hayek would take the script and was often bouncing so much of what she was doing was bouncing off of Puss, and like knew how Antonio would improv. But like apparently she does a really great Antonio Banderas like caricature-esque performance, because Antonio Banderas is very physical when he's playing Puss. Like part of him getting in character is very much moving around the microphone, and apparently Salma knows how he works, and so had them in stitches. Like she's like, so this is what Antonio will do, and like she would go into Antonio's voice and physicality, and then they would be like, cool, like let's record against what you think his improv is going to be. And so there was like this like almost unwritten like love letter and dialogue between the two the actors of the characters, and how it felt more improv and more like realistic in their interactions. So like they almost should get like a co-writing credit on the screenplay, because there's a lot of like Salma and Antonio taking their characters and making them more, and I think that's really awesome. But there was so much joy in the way that it was talked about. Like Salma loves Antonio and knows exactly what to expect when she's acting against him, and there's just it's a love letter to their relationship as friends on top of everything else. The one huge standout to me was Florence Pugh. I did not know she was playing Goldilocks, and Goldilocks is like, she's a force of nature when she shows up in this movie, and the interactions between her and the three bears and her and Puss and like are just so fun. Like she's sort of sad and broken, but like constantly moving forward. And I was just really impressed. And Olivia Colman is Mama Bear. Like there's just so many amazing actors. It's unreal, the cast they were able to pull together for this.
Yeah, it's great.
One last note. Jack Horner, having John Mulaney play Jack Horner as like a grown-up sociopath version of little Jack Horner is really
big Jack Horner,
right? Big Jack Horner. I don't want to get beaten down. It's really fun having that voice be the reason, be the you know, in this like giant baby man is so funny, and the lines they give him, the way that he approaches the world, like is so like just a little stuff of like, oh, are those unicorn horns? He's like, yeah, the little ones are babies. Those are really powerful, right? Like just those little like aside lines. And then when he uses the horn like it's an arrow for the first time and shoots someone, and he's like, oh, that's what it does. There's just so much like fun that it feels like they're having with these characters, and the ability to sort of connect it to the Grimm fairy tales, to like, you know, children's songs, to all the like minutia of like fairy tales, and not make it feel like it's shackled with it, but it's like a little pop of color whenever something comes. When you go to his trophy room, you're like, my God, there's just so much. Like the room is just stacked. It's like in Andor when you go to the antique shop, right? Like every inch of every wall is covered by something, and if you broke it down, it would be from something, you know. Like the little ship in a bottle is the Lilliputians, and like they're in there. Like there's just so much fun, wacky stuff going on, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and that's definitely I think that's definitely a holdover from the Shrek world. I think that's although I was, you know, pooping on the Shrek world, the thing that I do enjoy about it is like all the Easter eggs and all the kind of fairy tale homages, and that is a carryover, and I do enjoy that part.
All right, it's main review time, my friend. You ready to rock and roll? You ready to knock at the cabin?
We need some like we need some segue music or something. We should get some of that.
Yeah, it seems like you should get on that. Are you making that music right now?
I mean, if hitting a desk is music, then I have, yeah.
So let's jump into this. Knock at the cabin. The premise for this film is there is a couple with a daughter that rent a cabin in the woods, and all of a sudden 4 people arrive, and chaos ensues. Right, like that's sort of the high level premise here. I'm really impressed with how restrained the opening of the film feels. The trailer gives away a lot of, I think, what is going on in this movie, but the level of restraint in like the build up to Leonard walking out of the woods, and how the family is together, and how they drive up to the campsite, and you know each of their personalities from just the little interaction of them jumping into the lake, and how much they love their daughter, and how one is more protective and a little uptight, and one is more adventurous. Like they do there's really amazing storytelling in just the first like 5 or 6 minutes of the movie about those characters. And there's a lot that goes that carries over from those first 5 minutes through the rest of the film, in my opinion.
Yeah, so this movie is based on a novel by Paul G. Tremblay. The novel's called The Cabin at the End of the World. Um, and this movie has gotten the thumbs up from the author, although I've been seeing comments that it does deviate quite a bit from the novel, but this is also the second time that M. Night Shyamalan has adapted something that wasn't an original script from him. I
Yep.
mean, I guess you could say I guess you could say Last Airbender was a bit of an adaptation, but he did write the script and story for it in a way. But many people are saying not just Old, which was his previous film, but this film especially is kind of the M. Night Shyamalan renaissance, and perhaps he is finding new success and new inspiration in the fact that he's not he's taking work that is already out there and adapting it to film.
Yep.
I mean,
What's your
spoiler,
God.
I was just going to say spoilers ahead, but the fact that there's no major, big, huge twist in this movie is a huge relief, and I do think that, like, to put it frank, in the sense it's like, hey, M. Night, like, that worked for you for a little bit. Quit that shit. Like, stop feeling like you had to be forced to put a big, huge twist in your movies. I think it just got a little tired and, like, forced, and I think this is a really incredibly successful movie because that pressure has been released.
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed this film. I gave it 3.5 stars. I think it is. I don't know that I would classify it as top tier M Night Shyamalan, but I do think it is. It's definitely a really interesting story to tell, and I think the level of competence and, like, confidence that he tells the story in this enclosed space, and I think it's a combination of, like, there are two cinematographers that work on this film, one that does all the interior shots, and it was because they were already booked to do something else. So M. Night kind of notoriously reshoots, so he knew he was going to need someone else. So I think they focused very heavily on the shots inside the cabin for the main cinematographer, and he has a secondary cinematographer that is also noted in the credits, who does a lot of the, like, pickups and the outside work. But it's really interesting to choose to know yourself at this point in his career. So he is a person who likes to work on film. He doesn't shoot digitally. He does a lot of reshoots, and so that means that he does a lot of daily work. So literally, they're turning around dailies, and he's reviewing them before they shoot every day of the previous day's work. And that what's interesting is he kind of comes to set with, like, we didn't get it yesterday, so, like, we need to reset this scene. We need to reset the world. Like, every day, it's he has a unique way of working that I don't know is the way that most directors are working today. He's very confident saying, I want to shoot it again. It's important for me to shoot it again because I don't think it's the right way. I don't think what we got was right. I don't think that it looks right. I don't think, so I think he probably is a unique director in so many levels, but the confidence level that he shoots this movie and the confidence with the imagery that he pulls together, when the four people who are knockers are standing in front of the two fathers, and it is from behind Dave Bautista's head, like Leonard, the character, is telling them what's going on. The camera has his head as half the screen and one of the fathers. And then it cuts to another shot where his head is half of the screen and the other father. And it's like this visual interpretation of them being separated. And that what Leonard is saying is affecting them both differently. And I'm just so impressed with, like, the subtlety in the way that he told this story, and the choice to cast Dave Bautista, this mountain of a man, and, like, wrap him in a shirt that feels like it is holding him together, like this, the tightness with which he carries himself, and his discomfort in what he's doing and what he's a part of. There's so much that I think is unique about this movie, and I think Batista is he's the focal point of this movie, and is proven now. I think that with the right material, that man, and the right director, he can run a movie. He can have a film wrapped around him. So there are a lot of really good actors in this movie, but this is really a Dave Batista acting seminar, right? Like, this is him proving to the world he can be a leading man.
Yeah, I think above all else, I mean, like I really enjoyed the movie, and I think without without as talented as actors as they got, even for the smaller roles, I think that this movie does not work as well. I mean, yeah, I think like story wise, it's very interesting, and I there are some very interesting choices as far as cinematography goes. But like, if you didn't have, like Nikki Amuka Bird
Yeah,
and Abby Quinn, um, as two of the other knockers. I, Rupert Grint,
yeah,
aka Ron Weasley, as all of you will know, he's also in the Apple Plus TV show that M Night Shyamalan does called The Servant,
yep,
and he puts on these accents that kind of place him in a different world
yep.
tone, like, and he does the same thing here. It's the one thing I think that like took me out of the movie.
Hmm.
But thankfully, that's spoiler alert. He might not be in the movie for that
Yeah.
much, so that's okay.
I think he's, as much as I would hate to say it, but he's sort of the weakest link character, and I think
Yeah,
the performance. I think
yeah,
everyone else, like Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldridge, are really really good in this film
yeah.
as the characters they're playing. Like, there's no surprise; these are both great actors, but like the level of emotion, the care that they have with one another, the care that they have with Wen, right? Like, it it does not feel like you're watching actors act. It feels like you're
Mhm.
watching a story unfold, right?
Sure.
Like, of these people. And I
Yeah.
think the same thing for like watching Batista, Dave Batista embody Leonard, and have to sort of try to bring some empathy to the role of the character that he's playing for the people that he's talking to. There's so much conflicted restraint in what I feel like Dave Bautista's doing. Like, he so feels bad about where they are and what they're doing, that like he doesn't even want to be in his skin, is what it feels like.
Mm.
Like, he almost feels like he's flexing all of the muscles in his body to continue to move forward all the time. There's like a discomfort in what he's putting forward that isn't off-putting. It is empathetic, in my opinion. Like, I feel so bad for the character of Leonard, because he appears to be a nice guy who cares a lot about humanity, about children, and yet he's put in this position because of the way the story unfolds.
Yeah, I mean, I would even say like he doesn't appear. He is a nice guy. Like
Yeah.
he definitely, and I think it's very obvious that Leonard doesn't want to be there, but he knows he has to be there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that the thing that I found interesting is like um, I think they stray away from this. They stray away from this as the movie progresses, and maybe that's because they switch cinematographers. But early on in the movie, like we get these like extreme close-ups
Yeah.
to moments that normally in any other movie would 100% not be an extreme close-up.
Yeah.
And I think that obviously that is a way to give you this feeling of like invasion of privacy, close spaces, claustrophobic, areas. I thought that was an interesting choice, and it was kind of cool, definitely. Um,
So one of the cinematographers, one of the directors of photography um, J- uh, is Jaron Blaskich, who is Robert Edgar's cinematographer for The
Hmm.
Lighthouse. Right.
I
So
see.
you can feel the and the Northman. Like he's worked a lot with like auteurs who have a specific vision. He apparently did some work also on Servant. So, I think the comp to Lighthouse and Cabin in Knock in the Cabin are similar. That like claustrophobic feeling of a single room, um, and the use of that claustrophobic feeling. I think you're right. The very like cerebral choice of putting the camera where it is, so you're not seeing the majority of what is going on, is a choice that is being made. I'm surprised the movie is rated R, to be honest. If they had removed like two fucks, they could have probably gotten to a PG-13 rating. It would not take very much to make this a PG-13 film.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I think that like rating systems, they do whatever they want, and you know what I mean. And like, um, it's like so they like choose when to. I don't know. It's rating systems are weird.
Yeah,
I think that a lot. Also, you have to like take into consideration like putting a young child in extreme harm
yeah.
is a bit of an R rating as well.
We should talk
Um,
about that young child. I think Kristen Q is really great. Like
yeah.
I think like watching her, the scenes with her and Leonard interacting around the crickets outside are
Mhm.
just some of the most like beautiful, like beast and innocence. Like there's a menace because you don't know
A
who Leonard is.
Frankenstein like feel to it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's this beautiful moment of like watching Leonard walk out of the woods and her questioning, like you can see the questioning behind her eyes about like that guy's kind of scary, like, and then
Hmm.
he starts talking to her and she's like, I can't talk to you. I don't talk to strangers, right? Like there's an honesty and a vulnerability in that the child performance. There's no like cynicism. There's no like the child being in their dialogue or their actions being smarter than their age, or like it feels very much like an honest reaction, and Leonard's vulnerability and honesty in that moment like wins her over. Like
Mm.
there's the amazing moment where he asks about the scar on her lip, and she looks like genuinely hurt, and then like he apologizes, and then she like takes the apology and sort of mulls it over in her head, and then like tells him where it came from. And I think
Mm.
that is so realistic in the way they handle that character, but she's really great. Like watching her, I want like a movie of her and him in a vulnerable situation. Like there's so much like empathy in the way they communicate with one another, and watching Dave Bautista have to get down on a child's level and get in their head and make them feel confident and comfortable. Like I want the Leonard movie about him being a teacher, right? Like um
Yeah.
it's really impressive. Like I know it's hard to think about like a guy covered in tattoos like him being a second grade teacher. I think that's one thing that people keep laughing about or keep pointing out. But I think people have tattoos, like it is just who they are, and have lots of them. Like I love the vulnerability that he has in this character, and how quickly she sees him as not a stranger, right? In like the 3 minutes of interaction they have.
Yeah. Yeah. Dave Batista was just on one of the late night talk shows because he's doing the late night talk show circuit for this movie, and he was saying the number one thing he wants to do right now is a romantic comedy, and he's wanted to do one for a long time, but no one is interested in him being the lead of a romantic comedy, and hopefully that changes because I think he's a very sensitive guy.
Yep.
He has a very interesting backstory in life, um, and I think there's like everyone has to grade people and put people in order and lists and stuff like that, and some slash many people are saying, like of all the professional wrestlers to ever transition into acting, that he's doing it the right way and the best way. And although there may not be the right way to do anything, I tend to agree. I think that he's approaching the world of acting very humbly. He knows that he has a lot to learn. He knows that he doesn't have a lot of time to do it, and he's willing to take roles on different scales to make sure that he's in the room with the best people. And I
Yeah.
think that's very, very smart.
Somebody asked him about working with Denny Villeneuve recently, and he said, like, I love working with Denny. He gets the best out of me. Right.
Mm.
Like, and that's all you can ask for, right? Like, as somebody who understands, like, I want to grow, I want to, he is doing everything in his power to get close to and work with some of the greatest auteurs on the planet. Like, I would be very surprised if he doesn't end up in like a Robert Eggers film, or like he seems like primed to be in that space, right? I would be very surprised if we don't see him getting more and more dramatic acting roles based on this film. But also, I know in Dune Part 2, he has a much increased role in that
Sure.
movie.
Yeah.
So this
I
could
mean,
be a really good year for him,
yeah. I mean, he was great. I mean, he was great in Army of the Dead. He had a very dramatic-ish role in that, and
Yep.
he's a great guy, and he's a fellow Filipino, so gotta love him. And he's also half Filipino like me, so gotta love him for that too.
I think the only thing I would say is the reason this didn't cross past 3.5 stars is I didn't love the way the movie ended. Like, I didn't like the last 5 minutes, but like, I don't know how you end this film, right? Like, I know that M. Night shifted away from the ending of the book, and so he had to make new choices. I don't know what I wanted, but I didn't feel satisfied by the finale, which again, I'm now trying to review a movie that we didn't see.
Right.
But I know I walked out of the theater like, God, the 96 minutes that led up to that last 5 minutes, I was really on board with. It's almost like the Last Night in Soho problem for me of like, I really absolutely think this movie is doing everything up to the last 8 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like similarly here, I wish that this had a stronger closeout with a more definitive answer for what we were supposed to take away.
Yeah.
I think it's a very like, the ending is sad and doesn't declaratively say anything. And I think that's the only component of this film I was a little sad by.
Yeah. Can we go into like spoiler land? Can we? If you're listening to this, we're gonna. I'd love to just go into major spoiler land. So if you don't want to, if you don't want to know too much about the movie more, then press pause or fast forward till we please ask you to rate and subscribe and give us 5-star ratings and everything like that. But
so spoilers. Here we go.
So these 4 people come because the couple has to kill one another to stop the apocalypse, right?
The family has to make a choice to kill one of the family members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they don't do, for every time that they're asked to make the choice, if they don't make it, one of the 4 people who have come to them is killed by the other ones.
Yes.
And then something bad happens. Now there's allusions to a message board. There's allusions to visions that people see.
Yep.
I thought it was really interesting how one of the dads, I don't remember which one. It's Andrew, who is Ben Eldridge's character. He's like a civil rights lawyer, I think, or something along those lines. And he mentions that like there's like a new thing that happens in like the 20th century where it's like shared trauma through the internet, and people start to believe things are real even though they're not because they were fabricated on the internet. I thought that's a really interesting aspect of this movie. He goes because I feel like everything that happens in the movie, you see both sides of it. Like he's like, this isn't a live news broadcast that they show where a tragedy is happening.
Yep.
Like someone could be manipulating the 4 of you to turn on the television at this time.
Yep.
Why didn't they just leave the television on all the time? You know what I mean? And I think that there's enough. I think that one of the interesting things about this movie is I think that it does open the door and encourage people to have conversations about the movie, which I appreciated.
Yep.
And I think that my wife and I saw this movie together, and we had a nice conversation afterwards about like, well, again, spoilers, but I was like, who won? Did the world go like did the world was the world saved because they made a choice, or were they duped,
Yeah.
and did they just murder someone, and the world would have been normal anyway? So there are things like that that I think are interesting
Yeah.
about the movie. And even though if you stuck around, thank you for sticking around, but I think it's worth seeing the movie
Yeah.
to make your own assumptions.
I think visually there are moments in this film that I like, the sequence where the two fathers in the back of Leonard's head. I think there's some really like visually stunning components of this film. The four of them standing outside and you looking through the window and just seeing their feet and the weapons. Like there's some really awesome visuals that are created in
Mhm.
an enclosed space, and the use of space, right? Like at one point, uh Leonard gets shot. Leonard's in the bathroom and they shoot through the shower curtain. And you look at this window and you're like, did Leonard climb out the window? And you're like,
You know,
it would probably be a Winnie the Pooh situation. Like he would
yeah,
get
it was like,
stuck,
there's no
right?
way.
It's a
Yeah.
small window, but you as the watching the character trying to process the room, you end up in this moment of like almost a little half smirk of like, you'd see Batista like hanging by his waist trying to get out the window.
Mhm.
And I think there's some really great storytelling beats there about how to tell a story. And I think M. Night Shyamalan is a fantastic director, but I think what he does better than almost anybody is uncomfortable thriller level tension. Like he
Mhm.
can ramp up the tension in a scene with the smallest movement of a camera, with the smallest dialogue change, right? Like there's a moment where something happens and Jonathan Groff says that he saw a reflection in a mirror. And I've heard this talked about a couple of times by a couple of different critics on podcasts. And they've asked the question, like, did you see something in the mirror in the reflection? And no one has gotten a chance to see it twice. So we don't
Mm.
know. Right. But
Right.
just the allusion to the fact that that the character believed that there was something bigger than them in the house that was moving this,
Mhm.
similar to like what he did in Devil, or what is done in Devil, is you're questioning yourself. And I think the one thing he does really well is this constant questioning of like, who do you believe, and is this
Yeah.
possible, and could this happen, right? Like
Yeah.
I think you were alluding to that at like, why isn't the television on the whole time? What, like there are little things that he does on purpose to make it more complicated for you, the viewer, to piece together the story, just like the characters in the story, right? Like
Mhm.
they're trying to process what they're being told, and you get to sit on the side of the people who are being told. M. Night is really good at like stringing you along as a viewer. You don't get out ahead of the film, which is what I really am impressed with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I mean, I would probably give this movie a 3 out of 5, and I think I was glad I saw it. Like, I think we can both agree it's like you go for Dave Batista, but you stay for the rest of the ensemble.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anytime you get a chance to like pull it together, like Jonathan Groff and Ben Eldridge in a film together, where they are an empathetic and caring couple, like that's really fantastic casting. Getting a chance to
Mhm.
see the two of them, you've seen them in other films playing different roles, slamming them into the same role in the same film as a couple was just it's inspired casting, and it's also like, obviously, why haven't we seen this before? Like
Mhm.
they're both so good at playing empathetic and caring humans. Wouldn't they make a really great couple on film? And I just think it's perfect. You didn't feel like you needed this. It's a coupling we haven't seen up to this point in film. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, this is right. Like, so that I think the casting of this is also really genuinely a big part of why this works. Right, the
Yeah.
little girl is cast
100%.
perfectly. Right, like without Batista sort of being the center of the film, I don't think this film works. I think the other knockers, except for maybe Rupert Grint, like really, really bring so much. I don't know if they did it on purpose, where his character's in the film so short because and is sort of a gruff component of the knockers, right? Like every other knocker seems to care and is empathetic. So having
Mhm.
him be the first one gone is part of what I think we are not supposed to care about that character. So maybe it's on purpose, like we don't get
Yeah, and
invested in their story at
sure.
all,
But also, like part of I mean, when you look on the other side of the coin, where it's like, well, yeah, of course you're going to put Ron Weasley in a movie because it's Ron Weasley,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I do think this is going to probably be the thing that knocks Avatar: The Way of Water out of the number one spot for the box office.
That's what everyone's
Um,
saying. Yeah.
I was really surprised. I saw it at 1:00 on a Friday, and there was about 15 or 20 people in my showing. I was surprised by that, but I did get to see it in Dolby Cinema. So, boy, the sound was awesome.
Nice.
Like, good job, AMC, deciding this film should replace Avatar: The Way of Water in your Dolby Cinema locations, because the knocking, just the aspect that's it's in the trailer, that the sound is so good in this film. And the choice to put it in their best sound theater at AMC was the right choice.
Mm-hmm. Kudos to Mr. Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Nice job. And much love to the entire cast, and especially Dave Bautista.
Yeah, really fun. This has been a great conversation. I'm really glad we chose this film. I tweeted that I'm always in the bag for an M. Night Shyamalan movie, but Dave Bautista is what really made the movie work for me. And what's awesome is the Knock at the Cabin social media crew grabbed that quote and made a video out of it and retweeted it on Twitter. So it's really, they're doing everything they can, I think, to support this film. I think the social media push has been really smart. I expect we're going to link to them when we release the podcast, and I expect that they will jump all over it. I'm really excited to see more people get exposed to this film and get a chance to see Dave Bautista shine. M. Night is the reason that people come to this, and Dave Bautista is the question mark. I wonder if he's going to be able to pull it off. I think people are going to walk out of this film and be like, M. Night has created a really amazing story here and adapted someone else's work. But boy, what did Dave Bautista pull off, right? I think that's the conversation we're going to have a lot of over the next month.
I mean, it's so funny because it's like, I almost think that people shouldn't be surprised, because we were saying the exact same thing when Guardians of the Galaxy came out.
Oh, yeah.
We were like, holy hell, this dude stole the show from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep.
And he's doing the same thing here. He works his ass off, and it shows,
Yep.
He is they're not the iconic is not the right word, but when you see Dave Bautista, you see Dave Bautista, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And even though that's the case, with all the tattoos and the size and the way he looks, the sound of his voice,
yep,
he actually is a chameleon in every one of his movies. He takes on a character. He's not playing Dave Bautista.
Yep.
And that's freaking awesome. And I love it.
Yeah, he's amazing. The current numbers look like it's estimated at about 15 million over the weekend. And it and 80 for Brady are going toe to toe right now to see who wins the weekend. It's at 14 million right now is the estimate. And our friends over at Avatar and Pandora are just around 10. So this is also a good sign for cinema and theater going. To have three films make $10 million or more is a pretty good weekend, especially in January. Pretty awesome. And closing it out with another 8 million for Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. This is a $50 million weekend. It's good job, cinema, and good job getting people back into theaters, and giving people something to watch in January, right? This is often looked at as a fallow period. Nothing good comes out. And, this is proof that you don't have to just sit on your laurels and not release something in January. These movies can make good money and can be counter programming to something like an Avatar: The Way of Water, right? 80 for Brady and Knock at the Cabin and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish are all sort of great counter programming to Avatar: The Way of Water.
I might see 80 for Brady.
I think my mother-in-law wants to see it. I think she's seeing it right now.
I think it looks super charming, and those ladies are icons. Each and every one of those ladies is an icon. Whatever about Tom Brady, I don't care about Tom Brady. I'm shady for Brady.
You should go and see 80 for Brady. I can't wait to hear about it. But thank you so much for this conversation and for all the fun and games we had this week. I watched a lot of things, but I was very excited to talk to you about Knock at the Cabin. I feel like I'm sort of a Shyamalan stan anyway, and this is one of those really just below top tier Shyamalan, in my opinion. And I think the lack of a giant twist is what really feels like a twist, right? With the premise of the film, with the trailers we saw, I think we were all expecting like the third act was going to have a really hard twist. And the fact that it doesn't is sort of the twist here, right? Like you're just left to live with what you've been told and you have to decide if it's right. And I think that is the twist,
Fair enough.
But let's run. It's been great to talk to you, sir. And next week, I think we're going to jump into, do we know what we're watching for next week?
No, we should talk about that, but we'll watch something.
Look forward to figuring it out. And we'll talk to you next week when we return with our mystery movie, no matter what that is.
And again, thanks guys for listening. Please, 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 if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and please, shoot us a comment if you can't. 5-star or shoot us a comment if you can. 5-star reviews are really appreciated. And if you're listening to us, like, do me a favor, screenshot the image of it, post it, tweet about it and everything like that, and it'll be really great. We're trying to spread the word about Geek on Film. So
yeah, thank you all for being our fans and listening and sticking through to the end. We look forward to hearing from you. This has been great. Talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
This has been a Geek on Film podcast. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.